If for some sick reason you've never made anything with this yarn, let this top be the one. Look at the colors this yarn comes in. And look at how it crochets. I'm just so obsessed with this yarn. It's my favorite yarn in the world. It is the soft crochet and knitting yarn by Sullivan's International. That's what she looks like. It says it's 100% polyester chenille. Color range, like nothing else I've ever witnessed in my entire life. The way it crochets is incredible. This cost $1.50 from Lincraft. $1.50. How? I don't get it. I don't get it. I used less than half a ball for this top. I give instructions for any size during this tutorial, so don't let my A cups throw you off, queen. If you're a bigger cup size, I've got you covered. I promise. This could be done in a day. If you're quick, this could be done in a day. A weekend, 1,000,000%, not a doubt in my mind. You could start this on a Wednesday, wear it for drinks with the girls on Friday. Come on! It doesn't get much better than that. I've made 2 of these tops now, and just in case you're wondering, the yarn colors that I used for my tops are iron and citron. Let's travel back in time and make this one together. It's crafting in my bedroom and going insane time. I'm starting with the body section and working my way upwards. Before we start, we need to figure out where the bottom section of this top is gonna sit. You could have it over the hips. I think that would be cool. You can make it higher up and make a little crop top. I also realized I got chin filler the other day and I'm bruised. So just don't look at it. Don't look at it. Wait, it matches the yarn. Anyway, you could have it higher up. I like mine to sit in the kind of small, around the small of my waist, because it makes it look a little bit snatched. It's giving snatched illusion. So I'll be making mine to fit just around here. All I'm doing for mine is making a starter chain and crocheting a few rows in that same amount of stitches. I don't think there's any need to do anything too fancy. We're just crocheting a little rectangle. I'm using a 5mm hook. Also matches the chin filler bruise. Yeah! Leaving a nice tail. I'm gonna yarn on. And I'm gonna use a pretty loose tension through this whole top. This one that I've already made, I made with a pretty tight tension. And it's quite structured and I do like that. But for this next one, I want it to be a little bit more drapey and flowy. You know what's really crazy is that this top and this top are made with the exact same yarn with the exact same size hook. The only thing I did differently was use a different tension. So keep that in mind before you start working. The tension really makes a big difference. And neither one is right or wrong. It's just personal preference. Okay. I'll make my starter chain. Something you want to keep in mind is that we're putting buttons on the panels of this top. And to be able to do the buttons up, we do need a little bit of overlap. I didn't even count how many stitches I just did. I guess we're going fucking tight B mode. This is probably perfect for me. There's a little bit of crossover, which will work well with the buttons. I'll do maybe like 2 rows of double crochet over the top of this starter chain. That will give me a better idea of whether or not I'm 100% satisfied with this starter chain size. If not, I can always undo it and start again. Sometimes, ladies, when we freehand, it does take a little bit of trial and error. But I think that's a good thing. You want to be happy with your pieces. You want them to fit exactly how you like. So don't feel like a gigantic flop chungus loser if you have to undo some shit and try again. It's an important part of the process. I'm gonna double crochet back over my starter chain and I'm gonna count while I do that so that I actually know how many stitches I have here because I haven't been counting so far. And yeah, I'll do 2 rows and check back in and see if the size is good for me. Just a note from me really quickly. I realized as I was editing this video that when I show you how I do my border later, it isn't gonna make any sense unless I explain something very quickly now. When I'm crocheting and I'm at the end of a row and it's time to work, upwards and start the next row, I don't chain 2 or 3 stitches. I work a double crochet straight into my edges. You can do whatever you like. It's totally personal preference, of course, but I find doing it that way makes your pieces a lot less gappy, which I think makes them look a little bit more expensive. And I like that look for me personally. You don't have to fucking do that if you don't want to. But I was editing my video and I realized that how I do my borders actually kind of relies on there being a double crochet on my edges. I work my border stitches like actually into the double crochets on the edges. And I don't think you'll be able to work border stitches into a chain. You would have to work your border stitches around the chain, which is going to make your pieces look slightly gappy on the edges. Totally not a problem if that's your preference, but I did just want to let you know, if you want your pieces to look like mine, try doing the method I use and do double crochets straight into your edges. If this is your first time trying it that way, let me know how you go. Let me know how you like it, because I think you're going to prefer it. I really do. I really do. I had to make and undo and remake these 2 rows of crochet 7 times. I just couldn't get it right. I don't know what the hell was happening. It's been over 24 hours since I last spoke to you. So much has happened in those 24 hours. I dyed my hair. I got skin needling done. I had a spiritual experience with my skin lady. I guess this week I'm just saying, hey, if you have a needle, stick it in my face. Don't ask me what I'm going through right now. You don't want to know. This is the perfect size for me. There's a perfect amount of overlap for my buttons, and I'm finally happy with the length of this band section. For me, this is a chain of 80, and I'm just going to do rows of 80 on top of it until it's at a height that I like. I swear to God, I'm not sticking any more needles in my face in between now and then. Okay? Oh my God, I just undid it. It's okay. It's okay. 9 rows of 80. It's just a long ass rectangle. It is fucking freezing right now, so don't mind the robe. Okay. Oh, I'll take it off. I'm really happy with the height of this band. I'm keeping in mind that it'll probably never really be sitting fully flush against my body. It'll more often than not be like, you know, scrunched up a little bit, bunched up. So I've crocheted enough rows to really allow for that. The overlap of my ends here is perfect. I like this kind of height. I think if you made this band too skinny, it would look kind of cheap looking. I think a thicker band makes it look a little bit nicer. I don't know. Of course, it's totally up to you. Now, what I'm going to do is just cut my ends here. So normally, right at this point, you would tie off your ends and sew them in and so on and so forth. But when I'm freehanding, I actually like to just leave them unfinished so that as I'm going, if I decide I want to make any changes, if I want to take a row off, if I want to attach more yarn and do a few more rows of crochet, I can. So I'm just going to leave this as it is for now until my top is pretty much fully made and I'm at kind of the last step of the putting my top together, and that's when I'll sew my ends in. Now we're going to start on these 2 like boob panel sections. These boob panels are just big rectangles. The way that I've attached it maybe makes it look like I increase and decrease at the ends, but it's just the way that I've cinched it in and attached it to these sections. I reckon the best way to figure out how long to make your starter chain for these boob sections would be to measure around like your nips. Because as you can see, it's actually sitting quite flat. So I think if you made a chain and kind of hold it up around here, it'll give you a really good idea of whether or not it'll be the right coverage for you. If you're making quite a large section for your yiddies, I promise you there is no size too big, okay? If you have to make a really wide section for your boobs and you're holding it up against your waistband section and you're like, what the fuck? It's covering up like half the waistband. I promise you this boob section won't be joined fucking all the way back here no matter how big you make it. We will find a way to get it cinched in so that it's sitting in a really similar position to this. So make whatever size you need. Okay, let's get this off. Dressing gown back on. So much better. Okay, and now we can start the starter chain for the boob section. So leaving a nice tail, yarning on. I already know how long I want mine. It's a chain of 23. Allowing a little bit of kind of draping room slightly. This is perfect for me. As always, I'll do a few rows of double crochet over this in the exact same amount of stitches, just a few rows of 23. I think 1 row of double crochet will give me enough of an idea as to whether or not this is right for me. I'm happy with that, ladies. I'm gonna go and watch 90 Day Fiancé. We have a new season. New season alert! The amount of hours of my life I have dedicated to watching that show is actual insanity. And I'm sick of seeing Colt's face. Get me out of here! That's how I feel when I see Colt. I'm gonna go and watch 90 Day Fiancé while I do rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of this exact same amount of stitches, 23. Double crochet the whole time. Nothing fancy. If it's not double crochet, I'm not doing it. I'll check back in when it's tall. Nail check. Missing a nail. Don't look at it. Okay, let me talk you through my train of thought with these boob sections. I think this is the perfect height for me personally. I want mine to be a little bit kind of flouncy, for lack of a better term. I personally don't want mine pulled like fully taut, so it's like running tight along the body, although of course you can if that's what you want. I kind of like the look of it like falling in on itself a little bit down here. So I think this is the perfect height for me to get that effect. I'm really happy with how this is sitting on me. This is 34 rows and I got 2 of them. And again, I haven't tied off any of my ends just in case I want to make any changes. And just to give you a little bit of extra reassurance, look at how wide these panels are. It is impossible to imagine that these will even fit on that turtleneck. But I promise once we cinch them in, they'll fit on there just perfectly. So if yours are fucking all the way out here, don't stress about it. It's gonna be okay. They will fit. It's turtleneck time. The turtleneck is pretty much, oh yeah, I have this held on by a claw clip. I keep them in my crochet kit. What? Oh, for when I wanna like try stuff on. Life hack alert. Anyway, for the turtleneck section, we're basically doing the exact same fucking thing that we did for this body section. We're making a starter chain wide enough to fit around the neck with a little bit of overlap to allow for the buttons. And again, it's just a rectangle. We're gonna make a starter chain and crochet a few rows in that exact same amount of stitches until it's at a height that we're happy with. This is a chain of 45 for me. I can already tell that this is gonna be perfect for me. You wanna make sure that it fits around and that there's overlap over the widest part of your neck. I'm gonna go and double crochet a few rows and I'll glue my nail back on and then we'll start joining sections together. This is the ultimate turtle height. I like quite a tall turtle. I think it's chic. So this is good for me. This is 6 rows. 6 rows of 45. I'm gonna chop this off. And we'll just kind of like assemble the top together for a second. This is looking really tea. I'm super happy with how everything is kind of sitting, the structure of everything. Everything's completely perfect. If you get to this stage and something's a bit off, don't be afraid to make some alterations. It can be hard sometimes to like fully know if your pieces are all gonna work together until you're like at this stage, which is why I think keeping your ends unfinished is such a good idea. I'm happy with everything, so I'm gonna go and tie all my ends in and then we'll start joining all this shit together. New accessory alert. I'm double clawed, double clipped. What do you know about that? Wait a second. I have a few things I need to preface before we get into the joining bits together section of the video. I have a little tip of something I like to do. It is completely unnecessary. You do not need to do this. But something I personally like to keep in mind when I'm joining bits of crochet together is the fact that because I've used such a loose tension throughout my crochet, it does widen. Like this edge here that I'm holding onto at the top is my starter chain side, and this edge at the bottom here is where I finished making my rows. And you can see that there's like a few centimeters difference between the two sides. Your starter chain side with any project isn't going to have any stretch or give to it, but your last row of crochet will. So I like to work with that, and I like to map out where my pieces are going to sit against my body before I join them all together, because I think you can make the difference in width work in your favor. For example, let's look at the neck. I mean, you can see there's obviously a skinnier, thinner part of the neck and a wider section. So I'm gonna make sure when I'm putting my top together that the starter chain side of my turtleneck is gonna end up around the skinniest section. And my last row of crochet, which is the wider side, will sit over the wider part. And yeah, you can do that with all these sections. This is my boob panel and this is the starter chain side. It has no give. This is the last row of crochet. I'm gonna put the skinnier, more narrow starter chain side and attach that to my turtleneck, because this turtleneck section is a lot more narrow, and then the wider end will be attached to the body panel, just because it's wider. And lastly, with the body panel, same thing. This is the starter chain side. Like I've mentioned, I've made mine to kind of fit in the small of my waist, but when it's on the bod, the very bottom of this panel is slightly stretched over my hips, and my hips are obviously a little bit wider than the small of my waist. So I'm gonna make sure the stretchier, wider side of my crochet goes at the very bottom, and the more narrow end with no give will be in the small of the waist. You don't need to fucking do any of that. Like, it's so not important. Now with my turtleneck panel and my body panel, I've found the middle points on the edges that I'm gonna be attaching crochet to. So this will be sitting exactly like this. This is my middle point. I found it just by counting. Good old fashioned counting. Now, because I'm type B as my body panel doesn't have a real center point. I've had to mark 2 stitches for there to be a true center. This really doesn't fucking bother me. I'm not even gonna lie. If you are a numbers girl and you like to be very particular about stuff like this, you may want to do the math before you start even making your top and work out how many stitches you need for there to be a center point. For example, my body panel was a starter chain of 80, but if I was thinking ahead and I wanted to make sure I had an exact center point, I would have made it 81. I just like don't really give a fuck about shit like that. I probably should. Maybe I'll think about it in the future. I'll consider it. I find like making shit up along the way a really fulfilling part of the creative process for me personally. I remember when I was in primary school, my art teacher would call herself Mrs. Fix-It because she would say like, no matter how much you fuck shit up, obviously not in those words, but her whole thing was like, no matter what mistake you make along the journey of making something, we can find a way to make it work in your favor. And honestly, I fucking really like that a lot. I don't have a numbers mind. Anything that involves doing math, like I'm so not interested. I can't read crochet patterns, hate it. The most fulfilling part of the creative process for me personally is making it up along the way and figuring it out as I go. And there might be someone watching this who thinks that's wrong, who thinks that having 2 stitches as a center point instead of 1 is actually just fucking stupid, but I don't even care. This is how I like it, and it's what I like to do, and you can do whatever suits you best. That's no problem by me. I'm not judging either way, so don't judge me, okay? So anyway, you need to find the center points of your panels, and we're just gonna kind of like fuck around with how we want our boob panels to sit. We'll start by playing around with the turtleneck section. The way we attach this crochet, it's gonna be gathered in just kind of like that. So when I'm holding it up to my turtleneck section, I'm gonna hold it up kind of gathered in to give me an idea of how it'll be sitting. But basically what you need to do is find out where you want this boob panel to be attached to. You could have it fucking out here for whatever reason if you felt so inclined. You could have it pretty much working straight into that center point if you wanted. The way I did my first one and how I'll be doing this one as well is a little gap between this center point stitch and where my boob panel is attached. I'm gonna be attaching my boob panels 4 stitches out from the center point, but there's no right or wrong. You could attach it 1 stitch out. For me, 4 is perfect. I really like the way that it kind of frames the high points of the collarbone here. I don't know, I just reckon that's pretty. So I'll take this off and we'll start joining to this turtleneck. I've got my turtleneck panel here and 1 of my boob panels. I'm using my 5mm hook, the same as what I've used for this whole project, and the same yarn that I've been working with. And I'm just gonna yarn on, leaving a nice long tail to sew in later. If you have any like scrap bits of yarn, like of the same yarn you've been working with, this is a perfect time to use it up. And what I'm gonna do is shove my hook into the head of the very first stitch on this end of my crochet, on this boob panel. And because I know that I want this boob panel attached 4 stitches in from my center point, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm working into this 4th stitch. I'm just gonna shove my hook through, and then I'm gonna take my working yarn and the tail end of my yarn and yarn over, pull them both through, and then pull them both through the loop on the hook. I'm gonna drop this tail end of my yarn. To be able to join my 2 panels together in a way that drapes this boob section, we need to attach the crochet in a pattern that kind of skips a few stitches at a time so that it doesn't lay flat, it gathers. I mean, obviously, if we were to just attach as normal, it would be sitting flat and flush against this edge. But what I'm gonna do is for every 1 stitch that I wanna work into on the turtleneck section, I'm gonna skip a few stitches on the boob section so that it ends up gathered and we get that nice drape effect. On my boob panel, I'm gonna work into the 1, 2, 3, 4th double crochet here. And because I want the turtleneck section staying flat, I don't want that to gather as well. I'm gonna work into the very next double crochet. So I'm not skipping any stitches on the turtleneck section. I'm gonna work into every stitch right next to each other on the turtleneck side. We're only gonna be skipping stitches on the boob section. You can see this is where my yarn attaches, and this is the next stitch next to it on the turtleneck section. So I'm gonna put my hook, shove my hook through there, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through the last loop on the hook. I believe that's called a slip stitch, right? Or is this called a blanket stitch? I don't know. Now next, I'm not gonna skip as many stitches. I'm gonna skip 1 and work into the second one. So that would be 1 stitch there. This is my second. Working into the very next stitch on the turtleneck, yarn over, pull through, and then pull that through. Doing this in a pattern of, you know, skipping a larger section, then skipping a smaller section, then skipping a larger section, skipping a smaller section, will give the gathering a really nice effect. You absolutely do not need to follow this pattern exactly. This is what I like and what works for me. It may change depending on how big your boob panel is. If you have quite a large boob panel, you might need to do a little bit more skipping. So you could skip in a pattern of, I don't know, 5 and then 3 and then 5 and then 3, so that your final point of your boob section attaches sooner. If you follow my pattern exactly, it might join out a little bit further than you want it to, and it might sit a little bit strangely on the bod. I'm gonna continue with my pattern, so skipping 1, 2, 3, working into this 4th stitch here, and then working into the very next stitch on the turtleneck section, yarning over, pulling through that last loop. Why am I all the way over here? And then following my pattern by skipping 1 stitch and working into the second, working into the next stitch on the turtleneck, yarn over, pull through the last loop. You can see that it's kind of starting to come together. Now, this will be the inside of the top, so don't worry that it looks a little bit messy up here. It looks fine and gorgeous from the other side, so we'll make sure this ends up being the outside of the top. I'm going to continue with this pattern. I'm at the end of my kind of joining pattern here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, one last one to work into here. So I'll find the head of that crochet, work it into the very next stitch on the turtleneck section, yarn over, pull through, and now look at it. It's looking so cute already. You would imagine that when you're skipping crochet like that it would, I don't know, be all like fucked up, but it honestly ends up looking so seamless. There's no holes, no gaps or anything. It's so clean. Before I cut this yarn, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm really happy with how it's sitting. It's literally perfect. It's so good. Okay, it doesn't come too far out this way. Love that. I'm 100% happy with the point it joins and ends. Look at the gathering. Look at the way it gathers. Cunt. Fuck off. It's so good. This may take some trial and error. If you're unhappy with how this panel has ended up sitting on your body, change it. Change the joining pattern. Try 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Try 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4. There is no right or wrong tools, and I had to fuck around with mine a lot to find a pattern I was happy with as well. How fucking perfect is it though? Oh! Stoked. I'm so excited. Let's go and do the other side. Let's trim this yarn. Okay, now to attach the other boob section, we're gonna spin this shit around and work upside down. I'm following the exact same process, just doing it upside down this time. I'm yarning on, and because I'm working upside down, I'm gonna be working into the turtleneck section first, and then the boob panel second. So counting 1, 2, 3, 4, inserting my hook into that 4th stitch from the center point, and then finding the top of the stitch of this very first crochet on the boob panel, shoving my hook through there. Gonna take my tail end and my working yarn, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through the first loop on the hook. So now my yarn's attached. I'm dropping my tail ends, and now we're gonna do the same thing. It's just gonna be a little bit backwards. So because this is my turtleneck panel, I'm going to work into the very next stitch on the turtleneck, just shoving my hook through, and then starting my pattern of skipping 1, 2, 3 stitches, working into this 4th here, shoving my hook through, yarning over, pulling through, and then pulling through the first loop on the hook, working into the next stitch on my turtleneck, skipping 1 stitch on my boob section, working into the second, yarn over, pull through, and doing it this way, switching to doing this side upside down. Just make sure that these kind of seams are both on the one side. Personally, I want these seams on the inside of my top, and this is the perfect way to make sure that happens. Let me go and finish attaching this. Okay, now we just need to figure out our joining pattern for the kind of tummy section. Same as with up here. We're just gonna kind of fuck around with these panels, hold them at different points of the top, see what we like. Let's talk about our options. You could have it running flat, like joined 1 for 1 along the body panel, so then it's just cinched in at the top. That's an option. You could start by attaching exactly in the middle. Like, that's a bit of a fucking choice, but go off. It's, you know, horses for courses. Actually, no, it's cute. It would be cute. It would be cute. That actually would be cute. I take it back. You could join them out here. right here, or somewhere in between. I'm joining 4 stitches in from my center point. Just a coincidence that it matches to the turtleneck. It's not necessary for them to be the same amount of stitches apart. That's just what I like on my body personally. And for my kind of gathering pattern, my joining pattern, I'm gonna change it slightly so that the boob section joins a little bit wider on the body panel. Like up here, it's really quite gathered. I don't want it that gathered down here. I want the start and end points to sit a little bit wider out just because I like the way that looks. So my like gathering pattern, my joining pattern, whatever the fuck you want to call it, for this body section will be anchoring that first stitch like I did at the top, and then skipping 2, attaching on the 3rd, and then skipping 1, attaching on the 2nd. And doing it that way is just going to make that boob panel sit out slightly wider down here than it is at the top. Now, again, your gathering pattern will be completely different depending on what you like and how big your boob panel is. So again, fuck around with it. Have a try. Try a few different ways. It takes 2 seconds to do that little bit of crochet. I think you could have a little bit of fun with it and fuck around. Try a few different things. Let me know what you land on. I'm gonna go and join mine, skipping 1, 2, joining on the 3rd, skipping 1, joining on the 2nd. I can't fucking think clearly today. I'm struggling. I love you guys. I love you. I took my nails off. Don't look. They look like boy hands. As I'm sewing in my ends and tying off, I'm just gonna make sure that all my knots and stuff end up on the inside of this top. You can tell by this seam here, this is gonna be the inside of my top. So I'm gonna sew all my ends into this kind of seam here, and then we're gonna start with the border. I personally think this top kind of needs a border. The biggest difference we're gonna notice is kind of in sections like here where it looks a little bit disjointed. By putting a border on the top, it's just gonna kind of close up all these gaps and it'll make everything look really neat and gorgeous. Now we're gonna have to do this border in 2 sections. We're gonna do around like the big circumference all the way around here first, and then we'll start another border and do the inside of the top here. I'm making sure that the right side of the top is facing upwards, so this is going to be the part that the world will see. And I'm going to start my border on this body panel. This is the body panel here. I'm going to start working into this corner down here. You can start your border in really any corner. It doesn't matter. But I'm starting mine down here. I'm using my 5mm hook, the same one I've been using for the rest of this top, and the same yarn. And I'm gonna yarn on. I'm gonna work into the gap in between these 2 stitches here in the corner. I'm gonna shove my hook in, grab the tail end of my yarn and the working end, yarn over, pull through, and then pull those both through the loop on the hook. I'm gonna drop the tail end of my yarn and then yarn over, pull through with the working yarn, and that's my border yarn attached. I believe we're doing a border of single crochets, although I'm not like 100% familiar with actual crochet terms, okay? So bear with me. We're gonna be working 3 border stitches into every single corner, and this counts as my first border stitch. So I'm gonna do my second one, push my hook through the gap in between those 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both the loops on the hook. That counts as my second stitch. And now I'm gonna start working up this edge here, because when I work all the way back around, I'll finish in this corner with 1 last stitch, which will make up my 3 stitches for this corner. So I'm gonna start working up this edge. I like to work into my double crochets. It makes it look way less gappy, and I much prefer how that looks. So I'm gonna push my hook into the gap in this stitch. You can kind of see the stitch sort of separates, and yarn over, pull through. You can see, maybe that is a little bit easier to see, that I'm working like into the stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. That counts as my first stitch. We'll do the same thing, push the hook through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. That's 2 stitches there into that double crochet on the edge. Now for every double crochet along this edge, I'm going to work 2 of those border stitches into the double crochet. So that's 2 there. I'm going to work my next 2 into this next double crochet here. 1, 2. Working my next 2 into this stitch here. It can be a little bit fiddly sometimes to work into these stitches, but I promise it makes your border look so much better and your pieces will look so much more refined. It's a lot easier to see with this top. The border looks so neat and gorgeous. I think normally you would work over the double crochet, like instead of working into the stitch, you would just border around the stitch. But I just hate how it makes it look so gappy and like disjointed. This gives you a way more neat, polished finish to your pieces, and I just really fuck with that. If you don't like working into the stitches, that is totally fine. You do not have to. You can do it however you like. Something to be mindful of when you're doing your border stitches is that you're working into the actual double crochets and not the heads of the stitches. You can see here I have 2 rows of crochet left to do border stitches into, but because I used a really loose tension, the heads of my stitches are really big and they almost kind of look like stitches themselves. So I'm just paying attention as I'm going along and making sure I'm actually working into double crochets and not the heads of my stitches here. Now I've reached this corner up here. I'm ready to work another 3 border stitches in between these 2 double crochets here. So 1, 2, 3, and then along all the edges where my double crochets are facing this direction, I'm just going to work 1 border stitch in between the gaps of the double crochets along this edge. I'm working into the gap in between these 2 double crochets, into this gap here, into this gap here. So it looks like this. I've worked all along this edge here, and I'm just about to do this kind of meeting point here where the boob panel is joined to this body panel. I'm going to do 1 more border stitch into this gap here, which is like the real meeting point of these 2 panels. So 1 into here. And then I'm going to start working up this edge, just like I did along this edge, working 2 border stitches into all of these double crochets. And now this joining point here just looks so much more gorgeous. Okay, I've worked all the way around the outside of my top. I'm just about to join up with that very first corner that I started my border in. Remembering that I did 2 stitches here. I have 1 last border stitch to work into this corner so that it equals 3 stitches in here. And then to join my border back up, I'm just going to shove my hook into the very first stitch that I worked in this corner. It can be a little bit tricky to work into. There we go. I'm yarning over, pulling through the first loop, and then pulling through the last loop on the hook. And that's my border all joined up. We'll snip this, pull this through, and then we'll yarn on for the like inner border. There's no right or wrong spot to attach your border yarn for this section, but what I'm going to do is attach it in one of the corners here, so it's a bit less noticeable where the border yarn is attached. We want it to look kind of as seamless as possible. This along here is the boob section. So what I'm going to do is work into the very first double crochet on this row of the boob section, the boob panel. I'm choosing to start my border in a spot where I need to work multiple border stitches into this double crochet so that when I work all the way around and join back up, it looks a little bit less noticeable, I guess. If I were to start along this edge here, where I'm only working 1 border stitch in between all of these double crochets, it would be a little bit more noticeable when I join my border up. Whereas if my very first stitch and my very last stitch are both kind of worked into this same spot here, it's going to be a little bit less noticeable. Everything about this inside border is the exact same as the outside one. So I'll go and do that. And then we need to go button shopping to get some cutie little buttons to pop along here.
Bitch, I am so hungover. Oh my fucking God, bro. Last night. Oh my fucking God. I did crime. I did crime. I did a crime last night. I did crime. Yeah. Slightly concerned about the repercussions of my fucking actions. I wish I could tell you. I can't. Bestie, but I wish I could, but I can't. But oh my God, I wish I could, but I just can't. Anyway, let's go to Spotlight. I think we should go and get a froke. Fuck, I hate these nails. Oh, I hate them. Let's go and get a froke. Yes. Hold on. I can't bring myself to film in there. I'm too anxious. But I have brought my crochet project with me, and when I'm in there, I'm just going to like shove the buttons into the space in between my double crochets just to double check that the button is going to be the right size. Because, yeah, I'm not making any like loops or button holes. And if I end up with yarn, so be it. So be it. So be it. Hello? Look at these colors. Don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with this. I'm hand sewing these buttons. Girl, if you want to learn how to hand sew buttons onto crochet, I'm not the one. I just fucking like go like that a lot of times until I feel like it's not going to fall off. I'm not going to sew into this double crochet here. I'm going to sew into this second one. I'm showing you in the fucking worst way. And my turtleneck panel is only a couple of rows of crochet. So I'm going to do one here and one here, just 2 buttons for the turtleneck. My body panel is a little bit bigger, so the same thing, I'm going to work into the second double crochet from the edge, and I'm going to do 3 buttons along this edge. I'll do one up here, one down here, and then I'll work one into like the center row of double crochet. These are the buttons I got, plain silver, love it. I'm just going to use black thread to sew these buttons on, even though it doesn't match my top. I don't really care. Also, before I sew these buttons on, I'm just going to make sure that my top is facing the right way around. So fucking basic, dude. Like, I feel like I'm mansplaining. Like, you know what side to sew your fucking buttons on. You don't need me to tell you to make sure your top is the right way around. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm sorry. It's funny that I'm a perfectionist with certain things. When I'm crocheting and then other things, I'm like, oh, fuck it. Who gives a fuck? Like, black thread on this top is a fucking choice. I'm kind of annoyed by myself for doing this. Hey, so it ended up being everything I wanted it to be and more. Like, it really is just perfect. I don't have any notes. The way this top, like, sits on the body, it is so perfect, so flattering. I truly think this top would be flattering on any body type. Oh god, and we just made this shit up. Like, girls, we literally just like made this shit up, and this is how it comes out looking. We're artists, darling. We're artists. You better tag me if you make it. My handle is ixora atelier. I'll be waiting.